everyone, and welcome to our panel this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you're calling in from. The panel of discussion that we are going to have is Fashion is Global Inclusivity. My name is Ayesha Barenblat. I am the founder and CEO of Remake. We are an advocacy organization that's focused on bringing justice and equity to garment makers, the millions of women who bring our fashion to life. And I am your moderator. I'm so excited for the lineup that we have today. Our wonderful lineup, we were talking about this earlier, essentially touches all parts of the fashion system. And so rather than reading a boring bio, I thought we'd do something more fun here, which is ask each of our panelists to, under 1 minute, I will hold you to it, explain who you are to the world, or what you want the audience to know about you, and tell us, what does global inclusivity in fashion mean to you? So we'll start with you, Elle.
So my name is Elle B, Mambetov, and I am a modest fashion designer. And I started my career 10 years ago in the fashion industry. And now, not only being a Muslim designer, but a Black designer and a female designer, I am always pushing for inclusivity and having our voice be heard and represented in as many ways as possible in the industry.
Amazing. And yes, that was under a minute. We'll go to you, Jordan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jordan Emanuel. I entered the industry actually as a model, and I still am. I also co-founded a nonprofit called Women with Voices. It's a women's empowerment nonprofit based in Brooklyn, New York. And now I'm pivoting into the fashion world on the other side as a designer. I have a swim line called 844 Swim, which will be launching in the summertime. So be on the lookout for that. And for me, inclusivity means representation. Obviously, as a Black model and fashion designer at this point, there is a lack of representation in terms of patterns, textures, colors, even how we're represented in the media. So I think driving that forward is significantly important to me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jordan. Sydney?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sydney Maisel from Commonwealth Packaging Company. We are a third generation family business, actually started by my grandparents in the 1950s. And we create custom retail packaging for brand and sustainably conscious companies and really serve as a one-stop shop for all retailers, all their packaging needs. And for us as packaging suppliers, inclusivity means partnering with all types of customers, whether that is a startup to a global omni-channel retailer, to achieve their packaging goals and their branding goals, and really being conscious and cognizant of the needs of brands and retailers that we work with, and partnering with them to identify packaging solutions that are within their budget and are meeting them where they are at that time in their business ideation.
And what does inclusivity mean to you personally in fashion?
Inclusivity means, understanding that retail looks very different now, and fashion looks very different now. And, I think a lot of people look at packaging just as a vessel to, bring their garments home in, whether that's in the mail or leaving a store. But what it really is a messaging opportunity and a marketing opportunity to share what a brand's goals and missions are, where they stand, what their ethos are. And our goal is to partner with brands of all shapes and sizes to accomplish that.
Wonderful. This is why I was so excited as our panel came together, because we represent all of fashion, right? From the production side, design, the marketing and selling of fashion, to the actual packaging. So, Elle, I wanted to start with you. I was just so excited as a Muslim woman myself to look at your incredible line of vibrant, beautiful colors. There's so little when it comes to modest dressing from a creativity and innovation standpoint. So tell us, what has been the reaction to your collection, and how do you plan to continue to serve this mostly underserved market?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think for me, when I converted to Islam, you're exactly right. I was looking for something that was for me. I typically, my husband says I look like a peacock usually because I have like just a lot of color going on. And I wanted to dress modestly, but I couldn't find something that existed for me. So in moving into modest fashion, yeah, I wanted to still have vibrancy and color. And yeah, I'm really fortunate because, you know, now I'm a Farfetch partner, and Farfetch has been really great in inclusivity and allowing me to still have my same voice. They haven't said, okay, let's tone down the color a bit, you know, for the products and things like that. They've been, you know, very supportive and saying, okay, how can we even introduce this into other markets? So it's been, you know, a really great experience. And now I'm also going to be launching my first modest swimwear collection during Ramadan this year. So I'm just really excited. I think that there's something missing in this part of the market, and there is a way to dress modestly, but I mean, we're not dead. We still love color, and we still love vibrancy and ruffles. And like, you know, there's just so many different things that we can do with garments. So it's been a really exciting experience.
And what's been the reaction with customers? You know, I know you have a store in LA, and just people walking in and saying, oh my gosh, this is completely flipping the script when it comes to modest dressing.
Yeah, no, I mean, they love it. And it's interesting because I didn't know who would like my fashion. I wanted to do something that was inclusive for everyone, not just Muslims, but also is fine for us as well. And so I have a lot of customers who aren't Muslim at all, but they just love the styles. And it's been a really great reaction. And I even have like a hijab on one of my mannequins in the store, and like, that's fun too. So
that's wonderful. You know, I just love to see disruption, because so often in the fashion world, it's like, does everything look the same? You know, we need different types of ways to serve different audiences. Jordan, I wanted to turn to you, because one of the things that I absolutely love is you have this platform, right? As a model, as someone who's now an entrepreneur, and you have always talked about bringing your whole self to your platform, you know, thinking about the multi-dimensions as a woman, as a Black woman in the fashion industry. And you talk about mental health, and you talk about sensuality. And those are not necessarily things that are connected out in the public domain. So I'm just curious, what has been the response to your advocacy efforts? You know, if there are particular responses that you'd like to share with the audience.
I think generally the response has been a positive one, but, you know, like in any instance, when you're changing something up or something's moving in a way that people aren't used to, it's going to cause conversation. Sometimes it's going to cause conflict, you know, and I think from an international standpoint, as a person in general, you don't see, or women haven't been empowered, historically speaking, to activate multiple sides of themselves. We've been told that we're, you know, pretty straight and narrow, and this is our place, and this is
the product, right? That's your job.
And so as we continue to branch out in any interest that we have, whether that's business or whatever it is, it's going to cause a little discomfort, especially for our male counterparts, unfortunately. And it's something that they're going to have to get used to. And while that trial period is going on, you know, the conversations are happening. But I think that's what's important is for me, especially, to represent what it is I want to see and help other women and empower other women to feel like they can, you know, activate whatever it is that they want to do, whether that's a male-dominated space or not. I think I get that. You know, for my mom, she was a biomedical engineer. Women, you don't usually see women in engineering, let alone a Black engineer. So for me, I think that's where that came from and sparked that. As far as
to say, you know, I'm out there, but, you know, I wonder for our audience if you could share, you know, what have been some of the positive responses to you advocating in this way. And, you know, if you want to share a troll story or two, we're up for that too.
So on the positive front, I've gotten a lot of messages from other women, and even men, surprisingly for me, have told me how, you know, my openness with struggles I've had, or openness with being vulnerable about going through something. For example, I have alopecia, so my hair loss, or my modeling career, and how that has inspired them to, either go see a dermatologist or open up about the struggle that they're having, or go to that shoot or go to that casting or reach out to that modeling agency. I've gotten a lot of those messages, which quite frankly, I wasn't expecting. So that was a pleasant surprise that I found on my journey. Negatively speaking, I think because I have been open with, nudity and sexuality and women's empowerment through being comfortable with our skin. A lot of men have been troubled with that when they see it paired with me having an opinion and being an advocate for women, specifically when I'm talking about, women with voices and the nonprofit aspect. They like to challenge me as if I don't have a mind because I'm comfortable with my body. So oftentimes I'll get into those little spats in my DMs because I am open to conversation, because the goal is to, enlighten them, right? And you don't do that by just pouring them.
Me. I can be a complex
absolutely
being and a sensual, beautiful being, but my sexuality is for me.
Absolutely. And I think that mostly with insecure people makes them uncomfortable. And so they'll usually be like, okay, well, I like seeing you like this, so bye. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not the page for you. I'm sorry.
I love that. Sydney, when we were having a lovely chat pre-panel prep, you talked a lot about how your company has this family values and ethos. Of course, when it comes to shipping sustainable goods, that world has changed so much from 3 generations ago. So tell me, what trends have you been seeing when it comes to packaging, be it more in terms of inclusivity or sustainability? Because that whole world, when your grandparents dreamed up this company, is very different from where we are today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the trends that we're seeing, and this makes sense, right? Because we are a part of the fashion industry. We are the end of the supply chain, but we are a part of the fashion industry, is transparency. Brands are being transparent about where their goods are manufactured. They're being transparent about what components make up their garments. And that extends to the vessel that they are leaving a store with or that they're receiving in the mail. Packaging many years ago in 1955 did not include e-commerce, right? And it was really just a bag with a stamp on it. And now we are very conscious and partner with everyone that we work with to educate what is really going into your packaging. Is it actually recyclable, right? You hear all these buzzwords. You hear compostability, you hear biodegradable.
So many buzzwords, and it's not regulated in any way. So suddenly everything is sustainable. Like, this plastic is not sustainable. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, it's ideological sustainability, right? Like, that's how our goal is to educate people on what is actually real and what isn't when it comes to their packaging. And I think that retailers have really ambitious goals to incorporate sustainable packaging into their programs. But back to your question, the trend is being truly transparent and honest, and communicating that often on your packaging. So, if you're receiving a poly mailer, there's technology now to make a poly mailer home compostable, right? And it's our job to work with our brands to communicate that on their packaging so their consumers know exactly what to do with it so as not to further harm the environment. Transparency from manufacturing to end of life for the packaging goods.
Amen. So, you guys think you're done, but I'm actually getting to the hard questions now. So here's a question that plagues me. And that is this, that how is it that the fashion industry worth, $2.6 trillion? And as we've seen with this esteemed all women panel, is that we know that fashion is predominantly designed, made, marketed by, and kept profitable by women's wear. And yet, as we start to look at the C-suite of fashion houses, it continues to be run by men. And so I would love your thoughts on how do you see each of your roles in disrupting this system where fashion continues to mostly be controlled by men?
I mean,
it's going to get harder. Yeah, go ahead, Elle.
I mean, I think for me at the very beginning of my career, I almost put these blinders on, right? Because I started my career in London, and so I'm already a fish out of water because you can tell by my accent immediately I'm American. And, I was one of the only Black designers at the time even showing at London Fashion Week. And I feel like as a woman and as a Black woman, there were always so many hurdles just from the very beginning. And so I kind of almost put these blinders on that would just allow me to press forward regardless. And, of course, you do have, these men who have kind of like this chauvinistic mentality. But I just felt like, you know what, you're not the right partner for me, and just continue to push forward. So I think in my career, just having a little bit of those blinders and just being able to kind of compartmentalize and say, okay, I'm just going to put you over here just because you're not the right partner for me, has been helpful just for me personally in my career to kind of continue to be able to push forward and disrupt the, ripple, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. So picking the right partners is really key. Sydney, I'd come to you because, I was very struck by the story you had shared with me of the packaging company was your grandmother's idea, but then it was the men in your family that built it and started to run with it. And then here you are, some generations later that are going to take the reins of this company. So I'd wonder if you can share a little bit more of your own personal journey towards, owning your place in the fashion industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you mentioned, my grandmother was a driving force in the company being started in 1955, let's say. My father can correct me on that exact date, but in the 1950s. But she was raising a family at the time, 1955, raising two kids, and 3 kids. And my grandfather was out knocking on doors, selling paper bags as the face of the company. But behind the scenes, she was controlling everything, right? Like bookkeeper, finding new clients, connecting the business with where they need to go. And some years later, she started a retail paper goods store in the warehouse of our headquarters in central Pennsylvania. She was the puppet master behind the scenes. And I think that we're seeing now, I just joined this business about 1.5 years ago as the third generation. And we are, 50% men, 50% women. We have people that have worked with us for 25 years, and we are encourage and welcome people from all different backgrounds, professional backgrounds to come work with us, because I think it's really important to have those unique perspectives, those female perspectives, join an industry that, as you said, is often controlled by men. And then from a production standpoint, Ayesha, we talked about this last evening on the phone. Some of the manufacturers that we've been partnering with for decades are run by women. And those are our most productive, fruitful, and longstanding relationships are these manufacturers overseas that are run and successfully run by women. And we're proud to be part of that.
Amazing. And Jordan, I think in some ways you've already answered the question, saying I use my platform to bring my whole self. Here I am. So I'm going to pivot a little bit and put you on the spot here, Jordan, in terms of, for me personally, I've been fighting for the rights, dignity, living wages for garment workers for 2 decades. And, one of the things I'm often struck by is how that part of the fashion supply chain is mostly Black and brown women who are forgotten in the fashion conversation. And as I think about a lot of the racial, social justice conversations in fashion, they often feel very performative. And so in your own platform, where have you seen inroads when it comes to racial justice? And where do you see us having a lot more work to do?
I mean, I think we can all agree that this last 7-8 months has really shined a light on some of the gaps with racial inequality as a whole. And I think to your point, we saw so many performative actions and posts and a lot of it.
Yeah, there was the little black squares, and I'm like, but there's no black people in your executive board, and you don't pay living wages to the factory workers. So why have you put this
Well, and
Instagram
even,
square?
you know, even the ones who publicly have said, hey, we're going to start working with more Black influencers and Black models, I've followed up. I have kept tabs on every person and brand that has said that, to be like, oh, that's funny, because I'm pretty sure you just tried to get me to post this for free without compensating me, while still saying that you were going to start paying people equally or paying them at all. So I think improvement there, for starters. Black models don't make the same amount of money. Women in general aren't making the same amount of money. So that's something that can improve. The imagery itself needs room for improvement. Obviously, I wear my hair straight. It's just easiest for me to maintain. It's my prerogative. Often I'm asked to wear my afro or my curls because they're projecting this image of what they see needs to be a Black or a brown woman and what they need to look like, versus the authentic representation of people who wear their hair blown out like me. You know, so those things, those gaps really have a lot of room to be closed. Makeup artists, the beauty aspect of
hair and makeup. It's something I hear from a lot. You know, I was talking to the Black Model Alliance. It's like, it's not there. You know, you want more cover shots of us. You've got to have the right resources. And
absolutely. The lighting, I mean, the post editing, all of it has been off. In a lot of instances, you know, we shouldn't have to be mixing foundations and this, that, and the third for ourselves. We shouldn't have to be bringing our own foundations to set. We shouldn't have to be like, look, you have me washed out looking like Casper in this post editing situation, you know? So all of those things, better representation for us, and more makeup artists and people who represent our culture and people of color, photographers, you know, there's so much talent out there that hasn't been touched on, that really needs to be highlighted.
And I love that you bring it to, you know, this is opportunity that's currently not being met. So I could talk to you lovely ladies all day, but I'm told that, you know, with a few minutes to go, we're going to move to audience questions. And so we have a question here from France, which says, all you ladies have lovely self-confidence that really shines through. Why, thank you. And they absolutely, the person loved our stories and journey and was wondering if what we do today has always been on mission and purpose, or did this sort of awakening come later in life? So I'll start maybe with you, Elle, knowing that, you know, you launched your line after converting to Islam. This sort of ethos of thinking about inclusivity, was it always there, or was there a pivotal moment in your life where you had that awakening?
I mean, I always wanted to own my own business from when I was 7 years old. I put my first business plan together. So I think I always had a business mind. When I first actually launched my brand in London, it was difficult because I felt the pressure to not create a brand that looked like baby fat. So there was this pressure of making sure I had a brand that it was like almost someone didn't know it was owned by a Black person. And so going from that pressure to now converting to Islam and being at the forefront of my brand, before I was very behind the scenes, like most people didn't even know who the designer even was of my brand, even though I was showing at London Fashion Week. So I think having more of a voice now and being more the face of my brand, and also speaking more and being an advocate, not only for women, but, you know, prison reform and, you know, all the different things that I hold dear now. I try to focus more on that inclusivity and have it more as a forefront. I think it's not that it was in the back of my mind before, but I myself was kind of pushed to the back, if that makes any sense, by the industry.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. And I just so appreciate your honesty to say, look, this confidence, this ability to advocate for myself doesn't just happen immediately, because I think we're fed this culture of, you know, 30 under 30, somehow you have to figure it all out as a young person. And the fact that this was a journey, you know, much like you, for me, I have spent decades advocating for garment workers' rights, but my board said, girl, you've got to get out there. And, you know, to an extent, I was like, really? Me? Immigrant me? Can I do it? So I think especially as women of color, we do have some of that self-doubt, imposter syndrome, you know, and so just coming into that power being a journey, I think is really important to share with the world. Mm-hmm. So as we wrap up, you know, which is actually like the time has just flown by, and you know, I really do hope that we can keep in touch and keep these conversations going. I know that for a lot of people, lockdown and COVID, we were talking about this, you know, when we were in the waiting room, there's the sense of hopelessness. And so I wonder, given the many ways you're running businesses, we're in a global pandemic, as we move forward, what is the one thing that makes you really hopeful that we are indeed moving towards a more inclusive fashion system? And Sydney, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I can't even tell you how many people how many brands and retailers we've connected with that have started companies in the last year, right? The time you think you should not be starting a company is the time that people have, you know, just had a tremendous amount of strength and bravery and courage to launch something, a dream of theirs. And as I mentioned in the beginning, you know, we don't just work with global omnichannel retailers, we're working with startups and one-woman shows. You know, I'm really inspired by the fact that people from all different backgrounds are starting companies, that they're reaching out to us to partner with them to really serve as an extension of their marketing teams if they don't have their own marketing team. And it's just really inspiring to see a tremendous amount of creativity and innovation come out of the last year. And you know, we feel really fortunate to be like at the end of that supply chain, as I mentioned previously, but that we still get to partner with really cool brands and people on achieving their dreams.
Amazing. So you're seeing a lot of innovation. I know you're too polite to plug, you know, your wonderful family-owned, inclusive, sustainable packaging company, but for the audience, tell them where to find y'all.
Sure. So we're Commonwealth Packaging. You can find us at commonwealthpackaging.com or on Instagram, Commonwealth Pack Co, or on LinkedIn, and reach out and we'd love to chat with you.
Wonderful. Jordan, I'm going to turn to you next. You know, we were talking about your shuttling back and forth from Florida to New York. This work is hard. But as you think about, okay, I am hopeful and we're getting towards the type of fashion industry you want, what's the one thing that keeps you hopeful?
Honestly, conversations like these, the conversations, the thoughts, they're happening. And I think that's progress in itself, because at some point it wasn't. And so I think there's hope in that we're all acknowledging, we're all taking the time to think about it, and we're all taking the actions to put behind it. So that definitely keeps me hopeful.
And where would people find you, especially if they want to have a real conversation with an incredible model and entrepreneur?
You can follow me on Instagram. It's Jordy_Jor. My swim line is 844swim. And you can find me online on my website. It's jordanemanuel.me.
Wonderful. And Elle, what keeps you hopeful?
I just am such a dreamer, to be honest. So I think even though it's COVID, you know, like Sydney said, I'm actually getting ready to open my second store in 3 months, which is so crazy and weird. And I don't know, it's been this really weird ride, because even though it's during COVID, I'm such a dreamer. And I think that as long as we just keep dreaming and pushing towards our dreams, we can feel hopeful for the future. And yeah, it's exciting.
Amazing. And so your stores are in LA, but if people were to want to look at your collection, where should they find it?
So you can go online to www.lbmambet.com. You can see on my Instagram, which is at Elle B Zhou, and that's ELLEBZHOU.
Wonderful.